Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me for Healthy Habits. We're starting our IG Live on talking about a very important topic, our mind-body types, our individual expressions, and the doshas or mind-body types, also known as doshas, are an integral part of Ayurvedic medicine or Ayurvedic healing. So I see people joining. Welcome from Minnesota. Let me know where you're from. Love to see that. Welcome everyone. I'll let a few more people sign in before we get started because this is again the foundational principle that makes Ayurveda a personalized approach to health. Hello from South Africa, the UK. Namaste, Michelle. From Chicago, Michigan, Oakland, the Philippines. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And that allows us to see how international and global our community is. And which is wonderful because Ayurveda, as many of you have heard me say, although it was first described thousands of years ago, on the Indian subcontinent, the principles are based on the laws of nature. And that includes us as part of nature. And Ayurveda connects us back to our natural state. And as part of our natural state, that means that we're all unique. Look at every plant, look at all the animals. Even if there are two types of the same species or plant, they all have their individual differences, and that's how we are. And so we have to not only understand our type, so I'm going to talk about and review the mind-body types because it is such a core concept in Ayurveda that I want everyone to understand and embrace so that you know on a daily basis what are the best choices for you, not only because of your type, but what's happening right now. And that's what we want to become aware of. What are we feeling right now in this moment? Because then we know what choice to make. Because the choices we make will affect our body and how we're feeling, as well as our mind, how we're feeling in our mind. So it's really important to be first of all, be self-aware. And so I really encourage everyone as part of your Ayurvedic lifestyle to develop a regular meditation practice. Just creating space, creating that habit, the healthy habit of meditation. And of course, we do have our meditation app, our Chopra meditation and well-being app. So not only are there meditations that can help you get started, guided meditations, or even just silence if you'd rather have that. There's lots of options. And a little teaser here, we are actually going to be soon moving into more of this Ayurvedic content on the app. So not only will it give you your daily meditation options, but all of the personalized practices that we teach in Ayurveda will be accessible as well. So I'm going to give you a review of the mind-body types, and also remembering that even though we may be a certain mind-body type, we have all of the doshas or the qualities of the doshas within us. So on any given day, we have to figure out, again, what dosha might be out of balance and what we can do about it. So dosha is our, again, unique mind-body constitution, our blueprint, kind of like our thumbprint. It's determined at the time of conception. It is our nature from the time we're born and then throughout our life. However, that being said, just like plants and animals and climate and everything about nature, it can look different, feel different, act different, depending on the circumstances. But understanding our nature is really important so that we know on a day-to-day basis what to expect of ourselves when we're in balance, because we're all unique. There's no one size fits all. We're not all the same. How many of you have recognized that? You look at your sisters, your siblings, your friends, spouse, significant others, and you can see that something works for them, but it just doesn't work for you. Or they're naturally, without even trying, a certain body type, or they have certain tendencies with their digestion, or the ways that stress shows up for them, and is very different for you, right? And that is understood in Ayurveda as part of this concept of doshas. And one thing to remember is it's based on this concept of the elements, the great elements, Mahabhutas: space, air, fire, water, earth. So many different, like Chinese medicine and other healing systems, used these terms of nature to describe qualities of nature. Because when we think about space, what do we think about? Expansiveness, it's open, anything can happen within space, right? And that space is part of us. There are these spaces between atoms, spaces between our thoughts, where anything can happen. We can influence what happens in that space. So space, when we say we're space, it does mean actual space, but it also represents that we have the potential for anything to happen. So again, a lot of wisdom traditions and healing systems use words from nature to describe phenomena that we see. So space means open, expansiveness, and potential. Air implies movement. So when we say air in Ayurveda, it's the movement principle in nature. Things move, right? In fact, movement is life. Things have to move. Otherwise, it's like that. It's just static and nothing happens. So when we say air, yes, we're talking about like air, but we're mostly talking about movement that happens in the body, that wind aspect of ourselves. Fire is transformation. Think about fire. When you put things into fire, it transforms things, right? It's like chemical reactions happening in our body. It's heat, it's light that creates that transformation, right? When you shine light on things, it actually starts to transform, right? You've probably seen things in your furniture, your carpets, even, anything that is exposed to bright sunlight changes. So fire just represents transformation anywhere we see it in nature. In us, it's our digestion, it's our detoxification. Again, all those chemical pathways. In our mind, fire represents thinking, taking all these individual thoughts and facts and like transforming them into ideas and beliefs and, taking all that information and turning it into a solution. So transformation happens in our mind as well. Fire doesn't mean we actually have a literal fire in our brain or in our stomach, but it represents what fire represents in nature, that transformation. It also gives us energy. It gives us heat, right? Think about how we use fire. It gives us heat and, can transform things into food energy for us, just like, again, our digestive fire does. So that's why, again, these terms are used. Water represents, yes, actual water, and we know we have a lot of water in us, but also the principle of cohesion, holding things together. Think about when you have a bunch of dry ingredients and you add water, it brings everything together. So this water element, it's like starting to create cohesion between our cells. So they are attracted, they're cohesive. And in our mind, water, what does that mean? Water means that cohesiveness of our thoughts, that our thoughts come together to create, a linear thinking, memory, right? So that we can carry our memories from day to day. And then ultimately, earth is the structure, the solidity that we create that is part of our body, that is our bones, our muscles. Earth represents matter. So the earth itself, the rocks, but also the trees, the leaves, anything that's matter. So it's the material part of nature. And in us, again, it's our organs, our bones, anything we can touch. In our mind, what is earth? It doesn't mean we have rocks in our mind. It means it's that cohesive structure. So we have structure to our thinking. We need to, right? Otherwise, what would it be? Just a bunch of floating thoughts in the air. Now you'll see how this comes into play with imbalances, because sometimes our thoughts do feel like that, right? They're just airy and all over the place. There's no structure. So these all give us clues when we understand these qualities as to what we need to bring in to create balance. So we always go back to the qualities. Now, when it comes to the mind-body types, how does that work in? We all have space, air, fire, water, earth within us. All of these qualities that I described, we all have them. And also, we are born with, in our individual mind-body type, different proportions of those elements. And some of them tend to go together. So space and air, if you have more of space and air than you do fire, water, earth, you would be considered a vata. Vata, V-A-T-A, vata. So that just means you have more of the qualities of space and air in your mind and body. Again, think of it as a recipe that has like these 5 ingredients. If you have more of the space and air in your recipe, of course you're going to exhibit more of the qualities of space and air, right? So light, what is space and air? It feels light, it's dry. If you think about space and air in nature, if you go up into space or even on the top of a very high mountain, it's cold, it's dry. There's a lot of movement and wind, right? It's very expansive. You feel like there's no ground, there's no structure there. So dry, light, quick, mobile, changeable, sensitive to changes. That's all part of Vata nature. So as a person, Vatas will be a little bit more light in the body, a little bit more fast in their mind, like their thoughts. We all have lots of thoughts, but Vatas probably, they move even faster in their thoughts. They do have all those like kind of thoughts flying around because of that space and air that's prominent. They still have fire, right? They still have chemical reactions and transformation and all those things. They still have structure, but their primary tendencies and qualities will be described by space and air. Now, what about fire? If fire is your primary element, fire and water, again, there's some water in there to keep the fire a little bit cool. If you have more fire and water than you do space, air, and earth, you're called a pitta, P-I-T-T-A, pitta, or pitta. And that represents fire, right? So you're fiery. You're a little, more direct and goal-oriented and feisty maybe, or, get the job done and a little like, let's get it done, right? We would maybe call that type A, right? They're very goal-oriented, very focused, like light, like a laser. And so pittas are that fiery type. So in their body also, they transform things. They're a little bit more muscular build naturally, right? We can all build muscle, but if you look at people in their like natural states, some people just have more muscle tone, right? A Vata is more thin and light, and they may have to work a little harder to build up that muscle tone, whereas a Pitta naturally has a medium body, medium build, little more muscle, so not quite as light and thin as Vatas. And when they work out, they really build up that muscle tone quickly. They digest really well. So they eat and they just burn things up, and then they're on to the next, activity. And they can eat a lot. Yes, so some of you are recognizing yourselves in these descriptions. And we'll talk about people who have 2 prominent types. So hold on. If I'm talking about 2 of these types and you feel like I have that and I'm a lot of that, we're going to talk about that. So you could be, have a lot of Vata and Pitta in your nature. So again, we're going to talk about that, but let's just talk about them individually first. So if you're Pitta in your mind, you're again very goal-oriented, very solution-oriented, very direct, very precise. You don't spend 10 minutes telling, a story. You want to be very efficient, get to the point. You can tell the same thing in 1 or 2 minutes. Maybe a Vata likes to make their descriptions more colorful, more creative. That's how they see and experience the world. My daughter's a Vata, and I remember at one time, we'll get to me, Kapha. I would ask her, how's your day? How's your school day? And for people who just joined, I would recommend, we always recommend starting with Deepak's book, Perfect Health, because it talks about the doshas. And there are many books out there on Ayurveda. We have saved on our IGTV a lot of my previous videos talking about the doshas. So, and lots of articles on Chopra.com and many other sites out there. So, we're talking about mind-body types. Okay, so fiery in the mind. Now again, these things can show up in balance or out of balance. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But just by nature, pittas are more fiery in the body, in the mind. And then now let's talk about kapha. Their primary elements are earth and water. They have more earth and water than space, air, fire. It doesn't mean they don't have space, air, and fire. It just means they have more earth and water, just like a recipe would. A little more of this ingredient, a little less of these. So of course, kaphas still have some of that creative and focus, but their primary qualities are going to be, what do you think about with earth and water? That kind of mud, which is part of nature, very needed. It's a little slower. It's cool, maybe not as cold as like being up in the ethers, but it's cool. It's, yes, I forgot my story about my daughter. Thank you for reminding me. I'll get back to it. The mud is slow, it's smooth, it's soft, it's steady. It moves, but it has a steady flow. There's like a stability to it. It's nurturing. So these are qualities that kaphas have. They're very sturdy in body. They have a little bit thicker body, right? In good health, a bigger body than maybe a pitta or a vata. Very stable, a lot of stamina. So kaphas can get doing something and go for a long time. But it might take a little bit to get them moving, because movement isn't really part of their natural tendencies or their nature. Kaphas are stable in the mind. They're calm. They're patient. They're good listeners. They don't have to be the one talking all the time. Sometimes, vata, they have all this energy and it comes out in a lot of language. So kaphas sometimes are very quiet. And so again, we see these qualities described as these doshas and our natural tendencies. Now, again, I mentioned, I'll go back to my daughter. She's a vata, I'm a kapha. So I don't use many words. Of course, I do when I need to. Like right now, I'm pulling up on my vata energy to, talk and present. And that's what we do. We pull on all of these doshas within us when we need them. But at my baseline, I don't use a lot of words. If someone says, how was your day? I would say, oh, it was good. I did a little of this, little of that. A vata, like my daughter, when I would ask her, well, how was your day? She would take 15 or 20 minutes to tell me about her day, what so-and-so wore. She had a pink shirt. This teacher said this. I can't believe this happened, and she talks about her feelings all the time. And I would say, can't you give me the 5-minute version? And she was like, she just looked at me like I was crazy. There is no 5-minute version, Mom. So, again, then I learned to appreciate that she sees the world that way, and that's a beautiful thing. And I ground her. Someone commented that kaphas keep us grounded. That's right. If you have a kapha in your life, they're the ones that keep you grounded. So my daughter will text me a lot and say, oh, I have this happening. Do you think I have this condition or that condition? And I'll say, let's slow down a little bit. And I calm her down. And when she's home visiting, she's 23, sorry. When she's home visiting, she enlivens the home, right? She wants to do things and go out, and she's very vibrant because that's what vatas are. And so she brings like that movement and energy to my experience, whereas I bring her groundedness. And then if you have pittas in your life, in your relationships, they're the ones who keep us focused and keep us moving forward and get the projects done. Vatas might start a project, and then because they're like the air, they're like, oh, now I'm on to something new. I never finished that project, because they're very creative. They want to just have new experiences and do all these new things. Pittas want to get the job done. Kaphas might say, oh yeah, I started that. Like I do that. I buy plants. I bought some plants and they need to be repotted. They're kind of sitting there still. I get things done, but very slowly. A pitta, would say, let's get this done. I'm kind of tired of looking at those sitting there. Let's get the pot, let's get the soil, let's get it done. Which I appreciate that, because it then you don't have all these unfinished projects, right? So yes, people are commenting, you're probably a vata if you sound like my daughter. And ADHD, very good point. Sometimes we label things, and certainly there's extremes. But as a physician, when I see that someone tells me I have ADHD, sometimes I try to explain to them, well, yes, that just describes someone whose attention is very distractible and they have a lot of movement in their body. That's a vata. That's just vata. So instead of being like a disease or a disorder, it's just your vata nature. Now let's talk about imbalance, and then we'll talk about bidoshas and tridoshas. So when we talk about imbalance, what we mean is in your natural state of balance. You can be your creative self. You can have movement and energy in your body. But when it accumulates too much space and air, Now, what would create too much space and air? That's what you have to ask yourself. What does that mean, too much space and air? Too much dry, cold, light movement. So classically, travel gets all of our vata out of balance. It's light, it's dry, we're moving literally through the air, shuttling. It's cold, even up in the air, right? But mostly that movement, that change of routine, we're not grounded. So that's, maybe we're eating too much light, dry, cold food. Maybe we're living in a light, dry, cold climate. So that means we're going to accumulate or have a little bit too much of those qualities. So when we say we have too much space and air, that's what we're talking about. And because vata nature is to move, and we like what we know, right? We like what's familiar. So vatas, I know, like my daughter, maybe some of you vatas out there, she loves the crunchy, dry, chippy snack foods that are dry. And but when she eats them too much, she gets a little tummy ache, a little gas and bloaty. Raw vegetables, cold, and dry, cool, like not cooked, she can't digest them sometimes. And that's what we see with vatas. They have a very sensitive digestion. They don't have that super strong fire like a pitta. So this is when we talk about our Ayurvedic practices, which we will give you on the app. We talk about on our website. I have lots of videos saved on the IGTV feed at Chopra on our account here to talk about how we balance. So if people have too much space and air, we can account for that when we're aware. We know we're going to have too much lightness, dryness, movement. So before you travel, say, you put oil on your skin. Ayurveda loves oil for grounding and for moisture, right? We drink lots of water. We hydrate before we travel. We do our meditation. We have good sleep routine. We have very good routine so that when we know we're going to accumulate a little bit of space and air, we don't get so out of balance. We don't get those dry, hard stools because we're drinking lots of water. Also warmth. Drink warm water. You can drink warm water on a plane. You can just ask for warm water. Maybe you bring a little herbal tea that calms you down. Then when you get to a place, you can travel with a little bit of oil. So you oil yourself, you stay hydrated, you have a little bit of a routine. Establish a routine. So those are all ways you can still do the things you love, but you don't get so out of balance with vata. A good oil is sesame oil, or any kind of body oil would be good. Oils, water, always good for vata. Balancing. So what about pitta? What is a fire out of balance? A forest fire, right? We need fire, but we can get too much of it and then it's destructive. So what increases fire? Too much thinking, too much doing, too much, again, overdoing something. So that's pitta's Achilles heel, right? They are the doers. They like the projects. They have to have one more thing, a goal to be working toward, but they can burn out. So they have too much going on. They're thinking too much. They're trying to find solutions to everything. They're over exercising. They're working out. They have all these goals in their mind that they want to meet. And so they push and push and push themselves. So that can create inflammation. And yes, this will be saved as well on the IGTV feed, so you can go back and watch. I know some of you have to leave if you can't stay the whole time. So for fire, it's hot and it's light, right? There's a little water in there. So pittas aren't quite as light as vatas because there's a little bit of water, but fire is hot and light. So you want to have a little bit of grounding, again, a routine. You want to take away the things that are creating too much heat, the overdoing. Whatever it is that you're doing too much of, you need to do things in moderation. Pitta's key is moderation and cooling. So you want to drink, again, lots of water. You can sometimes put cool water on your eyes. You can soak your feet in cool water. You can walk by the water. You can reduce spicy, acidic foods. Of course, again, pittas like intense foods. They're intense. So just like vatas might like the dry crunchies, pittas like this, give me the spice and the, all the, sometimes alcohol or the acidic kind of things that maybe are overdoing can cause too much heat. That creates inflammation. It can create skin problems. It can create heart, liver. So those are all associated to too much fire. Yes, coconut oil, peppermint are all great for, thank you for sharing that, for cooling pitta. Now, yes, and someone else is commenting. I love your comments. Someone said their boyfriend is fiery and he thinks in finite. Absolutely. Pittas tend to be black and white. It's either this or that. Vatas can think of all the solutions, but it could be this, and what about this? It doesn't have to be just this or this, right? So this is part of understanding doshas. Sometimes we can manage our relationships better because you honor yourself, but you also honor what the other person is bringing to your life. Maybe more of that, getting things done, planning. Pittas like to plan. And then, we can get along better with each other. So kapha, let's get to kapha, earth and water. Stable, slow, cool. One thing I didn't mention that's key, and maybe you've picked up on this, we're bringing in opposites when we balance. So what do you do when you're too hot? Too hot. Do you bring in more hot? No, you bring in cold. We know this already. This is nature. When we are too heavy, when something is too heavy, we don't add more heavy things. We take things off and we try to lighten it, right? So we're bringing in opposites. So when kapha feels heavy and slow, movement, bringing in that space and air, bringing in a little bit of movement is really balancing for kaphas. It can be movement in the body. It can even be movement in the mind, like doing something creative. Kaphas like routine. We're very steady and stable, maybe the same job for a long, long time. But kind of, not that you have to quit your job, but changing it up a little bit, finding a new project at home that stimulates your mind. So we're bringing in the opposite. And movement again, and also lightening your load. So getting rid of kind of the clutter. Whenever I notice I'm starting to get stacks built up, I work through them and I clear my space so that I feel light, right? So for kaphas, we're bringing in lightness, etc. So let's talk about bi-doshas. Some people in these descriptions, like I said, you might have noticed I'm a lot that and a lot that. Actually, more than half of people are bi-dosha. You do have two dominant doshas, and then the third one is still there, but it doesn't show up as much, right? Your tendencies are going to be more in your primary doshas. So if you're vata pitta, you have a lot of movement, yes, and creativity, but you also are a little bit more focused than maybe somebody who's, primary vata. They have the most of that one. You're a little thin in the body, but not quite as thin and light as a vata because you are a vata pitta, so you have a little more muscle tone. Your digestion may not be quite as strong as like a pitta, who has a really strong digestion, but you're also not as sensitive as somebody who's primarily vata. Hopefully that makes sense. You're going to see different qualities show up in different parts of you and in different parts of your life. And two vata pittas can be different because it shows up a little differently in different aspects of their mind, their body, sometimes different, like in the workspace, you might be bringing out your pitta a little bit more. Maybe in a relationship, you're bringing your vata out more. So you can have vata pittas or vata kaphas or pitta kaphas. So again, all that means is you have two primary elements. So you're going to see those qualities equally showing up. And then there are a small percentage of people that are tridosha, meaning you have equal amounts of all of those elements. There's no goal. It's not like, there's no one dosha that's any better than any other. It's about knowing yourself. So a tridosha, all that means is that you will notice day to day, you have maybe a little bit more, changing. Like sometimes you're a little more vata, a little more pitta, a little more kapha, but you have equal distribution of all of those qualities. It's not as common, but there are people that are. So no matter what your dosha is, so that just explains your natural tendencies, who you are, right? And that helps you know on a day-to-day basis as a kapha. I think someone was commenting, movement is good for me. So I try to make sure that's part of my daily routine. And on the days that it's not, I know it's because I'm a kapha. It's a little bit hard for me to get moving. And I stopped feeling bad about it. Like I used to look at all these people like, oh, they're out running, they're out doing that. What's wrong with me? Nothing's wrong with me. I'm a kapha. My nature, it takes me a little bit more to go to do that. And so I give myself compassion. We give ourselves compassion. But then I set an intention to try, but I know it's just going to be a little harder. Those people have, like a vata has a lot of energy in their body already. So for them to get up and move, it doesn't take as much for them. But what it does take a lot for them to do is calm down. So they're thinking, how can that person be so calm? What's wrong with me? But there's nothing wrong with you. You're just a vata, right? Why can't I sit still? So, and again, those are just going to be our nature. What we don't want, because it can lead to actually imbalances and disease, is to get out of balance and accumulate too much. And we're likely to accumulate too much of our natural elements because that's just what happens. So vatas out of balance will show up. I think someone had asked here about as anxiety. Creative thoughts and a lot of thoughts all of a sudden becomes, what about this? What about that? What about that? And all this stuff to worry about. It can be insomnia because your body's so wired, your mind's so wired, you can't calm down to sleep. It can show up as sensitivities, very emotionally sensitive, very physically sensitive to everything. That's an imbalance. Vatas are always sensitive, but it doesn't mean it impacts, that it's, creates symptoms or disease. So that's why vatas on a daily basis, if you follow practices, and this is about healthy habits, if you follow practices like keep a good routine, oil your body every day, do some breathing and meditation to calm down the mind, eat warm, cooked, moist foods to balance that light and dry, you will stay in balance. So that active mind doesn't become an anxious mind. So that body energy in the body, you can move, but it doesn't become restless. So those sensitivities, oh yeah, I feel a little sensitive, doesn't become, oh, I can't eat, I feel terrible, right? And yes, if you feel like you're a little bit of each dosha at different times, we all are, because we have all the doshas in us. But if you feel like there's one or two that you feel more like most of the time, those are your primary doshas. So pitta out of balance, as I mentioned, in balance, focus, get the job done, they make good leaders. And, they are able to make decisions because they do say, yes, no, I like that, I don't like that. But out of balance, too much fiery, too much focus, too much thinking becomes my way or the highway. Anger, irritability, judging everybody and themselves sometimes. In the body, I mentioned it's fiery, indigestion, acid, bleeding, skin rashes, liver issues. Those are all things, again, that we want to try to avoid by not getting too much fire. Now, if any of us experience those, we all want to look and say, what's getting my pitta out of balance? For me, it's my secondary dosha. I'm primarily a kapha, but as I mentioned, we have different proportions. We have all of them in us. So I'm primarily kapha, but I have a secondary pitta and my vata's down here. So if I'm overworking, overthinking, overdoing something, I might notice some of those pitta imbalances. So we all have to pay attention to what each of those are like, in balance and out of balance. Then I know, I'm going to get to my aloe vera juice, my cucumber water, reduce the spice a bit. Let go of whatever it is that I'm thinking about too much. Let go, create, surrender a little bit. Those are all things that help calm the fire. Create, not such rigid thinking. And then kapha imbalance, too much earth and water, too much stability, too much slowness can lead to weight gain, fluid retention, earth and water, right? Too much matter, congestion. And in the mind, it can lead to the blues. I just feel down. I feel unmotivated. I feel sluggish. My bowels are sluggish. I eat and I don't really feel like I digest very well. Those are all signs of kapha imbalance. And that can happen to any of us, right? And we know in our sedentary society, at least here in the States, with heavy foods that are just heavy, sugar and meats and just heavy on all those foods, not enough of the light vegetables. It's led to a lot of people being overweight, no matter what your dosha is. Now, it's easier for a kapha to lose weight or to gain weight because they're already earth and water. And again, what do we like? the sweet, heavy, moist foods. Like ice cream is my favorite. But I learned a long time ago, I can't eat ice cream every day because it gets my kapha out of balance. In the morning, I feel like sluggish and tired. When I started eating a light dinner, eating more plants, more vegetables, light, bitter, and astringent foods, and I have a couple of videos on food and balancing for your dosha, then I feel much lighter and much better, and I can maintain a better weight for myself. When I do creative things, when I clear my clutter, I feel light in the mind. When I am interacting and talking with people, I feel a little bit lighter, even though, again, I prefer silence sometimes. And that's good too, right? We want to have balance. I think somebody said that it's all about balance, and you're absolutely right. So those are some signs of balance and imbalance in all the doshas. Again, hopefully you've understood the main point that we have all of the doshas in us. It's just that we have more of one or two, sometimes equal amounts of all three if you're a tri-dosha. And you want to really learn about what those qualities look like. Because if anything gets out of balance, and you know, oh, anxiety, insomnia, restlessness, irritable bowel, those are all signs of a vata imbalance. Then Ayurveda gives all the tools. The next question, what do I do about it? Bring in the opposite. And all of the tools and practices in Ayurveda helps us to understand how to balance. So someone's saying how to decrease heat, cooling, right? So we hydrate more. So between your meals, you're drinking more water. Maybe cooling herbs on your food, cilantro, dill, fennel, they're cooling. You eat more cucumber, mint, you're drinking some maybe mint tea or rose. Maybe you're bringing in cooling floral scents or essential oils. And again, in Ayurveda, we use all of our senses. Maybe I'm looking at more nature. Greens and blues are very cooling. And primarily you're bringing in more heat, right? So if you have a fire and it's out of control and you keep adding lighter fluid, more gas, more heat, it's just going to get bigger. So the primary thing is also, or the equally important, is taking out the heat. So taking out the spice, too much spice, taking out, the anything that's keeping you heated up, taking out the overdoing. Really for pittas, that's mostly it. Not exercising in the middle of the day when it's 100 degrees out, not doing the hot yoga that you love doing because it's intense, right? So take out too much whatever's heating and bring in the cooling, right? So this is all about opposites, balancing. And first of all, again, staying in balance. And I was just reading your comments. Someone said, I've been making muffins and without sweetener because the complex carbs calm you down. Very good observation, because complex carbohydrates are grounding. So that's why vata balancing, if someone's overwhelmed or, anxious, we go to those comfort foods. But we want to do it in a healthy way, and there are healthy ways to do that. Yes, and someone's recognizing Deepak's book, Perfect Health, is a great resource. Absolutely, trauma throws things out of balance. So again, our life experience, it's not only our choices, it's also our life experience that can get us out of balance. That, external circumstances can increase our doshas. So if there's a lot of fighting in our home, if there, sometimes if we're raised, with an excess of some type of energy, we take that in, because the other lesson in Ayurveda is we're connected to everything that's happening outside of us. Trauma. So when something traumatic happens and we experience some event and we internalize that, absolutely gets the doshas out of balance. Can get all of them out of balance, but the primary one is vata, because vata is a very sensitive dosha, and that's what creates all of our sensitivities. So with trauma, we start to get this vata imbalance where it can lead to anxiety, post-traumatic stress, physical, again, sensitivities, and all of those things. So in addition to doshas, there are many other factors in our health. There's our energy body, our physical body, our thoughts, our, connecting to our spiritual well-being can help balance the doshas. Meditation helps to... Sorry, I'm reading your comments. Meditation helps to give us the most balanced expression of all of our doshas. So meditation can be a practice for all of us. Someone mentioned fasting. That's absolutely good for kapha. All the doshas might benefit, especially pittas and kaphas. Vatas, who are already a little ungrounded, if they're fasting, meaning not eating at all, that can sometimes get them out of balance. So maybe one meal a day and then drinking liquids the rest of the day, because you can get out of balance if you do that. Someone else was recognizing their mom in hospice, sending love and light. And again, for all of us, when we have a stressful situation like that, emotionally stressful, any of the doshas can get out of balance, primarily vata. So you want to do some nurturing for yourself. Have your own practices, do your meditation, do some breathing before bed, put some oil on the bottom of your feet or something that helps you get good sleep, and take care of yourself. Yes. So how to meditate? There are many different ways to meditate. I would definitely recommend, as we're getting down to the end of our time, unfortunately, our Chopra meditation and well-being app. There's hundreds of meditations that you can choose from, short ones, long ones, guided meditations as a voice to guide you through some nice message of the day. And also, as you progress, mantra meditations where you just silently repeat a sound. And then as your mind drifts off, you bring it back to that mantra. It's just a sound that you repeat over and over. And sorry, I think my connection was weird for a minute there. And so that's very, very helpful for everybody. And then there are some just longer meditations as well. So I highly encourage you to check it out. There's, a free trial, and then you can subscribe. So you have all of the meditations that you've unlocked. It's a beautiful, beautiful app. And as I teased in the beginning, yes, this is recorded, and it is coming on Android. Very soon, it's coming on Android. I know many of you have been waiting for that. So it is coming soon, as is our Ayurveda content on our app. So it was purposely called the Chopra Meditation and Wellbeing app because we had to build out, things as you do in the tech world to be able to put this Ayurvedic content and personalization. And now it's almost here. So if you download the app, you'll see we'll have a quiz on the app, so you can answer just 10 questions, and it gives you a pretty good approximation of your dosha. Now, some of the things I mentioned, if you feel, you should resonate with you, it should sound like, that's me. It does a pretty good job of identifying that, and you can take the quiz, and then you get fed personalized information, personalized meditations that might be best for your dosha, personalized practices over time, and there'll be new practices every month that we send you. So it's going to be amazing and fun, and I've been having fun helping the team create that part of, that new offering on our app. So, definitely take a look at that, not just for meditation, but for your total well-being, using the amazing foundation of Ayurveda for mind, body, spirit health. So this has been so fun. I love talking about doshas. I hope you learned a little something and continue to learn. This is a new way of thinking about things, perhaps, for you. So go to chopra.com, re-listen to some of these saved videos. I have a lot of the healthy habits, specifically on doshas, and lots of great books and information out there now. Luckily, around the globe, Ayurveda is becoming more appreciated as this holistic body, mind, spirit, personalized approach to our health and well-being, and empowers us to create a lifestyle that keeps us in balance so that we can transform, heal, balance, be our best self, and then naturally the outcome is taking that out into the world. And how can we serve then, right? And so this is about sending love to you as well from Pakistan, from all these different places around the world. This Ayurvedic information and meditation is so needed in our world right now, everywhere. And so stay with us, keep engaging with us at Chopra, and we are here to support your personal transformation for the collective well-being. And I'm sending love to all of you, love and light. And I will start doing monthly healthy habits now, and some of our other series and people on the Chopra team will be showing up on Wednesdays at noon Pacific time, and I'll be back in a month to share more healthy habits. And please go back and watch the videos. So much good information to share with all of you. Namaste.